we finally have it. Prusa's answer to the serious challenge which has been brought to them as of late by China, by the Chinese companies. Of course, I'm talking about the Bambu Lab X1 carbon 3D printer, as well as the Bambu Lab P1P. And then there is the Soval SV06, which is a $250 clone of the i3 Mark III. 1/3 the price. And dang, it's hard to tell a real difference between this and the Prusa i3 Mark III. So of course, Prusa is forced to up their game and release the Prusa i3 Mark IV. So I've seen this video one time before. Let's watch it again. It's not a Kickstarter or some crowdfunding thing where you're gonna have to wait. You can just go buy it today. This is complete and total fabrication BS. In 2022, what is it? All 3DP and Make Magazine and these places that basically look like they are bought and paid for by Prusa gave the Printer of the Year award to the 6-year-old Prusa i3 Mark III design. This isn't the i3 Mark IV that won that award in 2022. And remember, 2022 was the year when we received the Bambu Lab X1 Carbon. The phenomenal leap in technology and leap in capability that was that printer. It's blatant corruption in this industry to see that happening. It's unreal. Only over 90% of all the parts have been changed or improved. And this is incredibly honest if you think about it. This means that Prusa is acknowledging that 90% of the parts which it's been selling for 6 years on the i3 Mark III are outdated or inferior. Why, for so many years, did you not change the i3 Mark III? Why did it take serious competition from China to get the leader in 3D printing to actually get off their, their heinies and make some improvements to their flagship product? 90%. 90%. That means it was crap that you were selling for $800 when you can get the same sort of value from China for like $300, $250. Hey, I've always advocated buying a stock base model Ender 3. That is a $175 printer these days, and you'll get 95, 99% of the print quality that you can get from a Prusa. Yeah, it's a bit more effort, but for $175 instead of $800, how can people love this company so much? It boggles my brain. You guys are letting emotion rule yourselves, and you're not being reasonable. You're not being logical. Okay, we're going to talk about a lot of these things that are going to come up later on, but for the most part, I want to talk about these two top points, the stiffer frame and the improved printed parts. Okay, stiffer frame, great. You made the metal parts stiffer. I could believe that. I haven't seen the minutia of what was accomplished there, but what's the point? A thing is only as good as its weakest link. A chain is only as strong as the link that's going to break. And when the link that's going to break is a 3D printed plastic part, why would you make the metal frame stiffer? So we've got all these improved printed parts, but that's just one of those, it's not a bug, it's a feature moments. They're trying to tell you a feature of the printed parts. Now, why not make them out of injection molded plastic? You could use some glass fiber reinforced plastic there. If you have to make them out of plastic, you really should make them out of metal, as far as I'm concerned. But okay, 3D printed parts. Look at your Voron printers that function pretty fantastically with printed parts. But the Voron project is for you to DIY it. And how are you supposed to DIY injection molded components or metal components, right? It's so much easier to 3D print all the joints and things that hold the motion system. So there's a place for 3D printed parts on DIY 3D printers. The Prusa printer is not a DIY printer. It has nothing to do with it. They don't really want you to upgrade it. If you upgrade, they want to sell you something that you upgrade. So they just want you to bolt their new parts onto it. It's not like you're really doing it at the base level yourself. There's another guy who goes by Mihai Design. He's another YouTuber, much more successful than me these days. And he started off his channel modifying Prusa printers, being a Prusa fanboy, and now he doesn't seem to be. And I don't know the guy. I've never talked to him, but it certainly appears that basically he got told to knock it off. Prusa didn't want him making Prusa printers better. Prusa just wants to sell you 3D printers. So it's not a DIY project. Don't fall for that. And improved, it's not improved. They're 3D printed inferior. Everybody knows, as cool as 3D printed FDM 3D printing is, it is inferior in strength and other characteristics to injection molded plastic, let alone metal. So that is just a total sales pitch right there. Don't buy that. It is a bug. It is not a feature. It's a bug. All right, this next extruder gearbox, this is interesting. Now, first thing to say about it is it's made out of metal. Look at all that metal. Big, giant orbiting gears in the planetary gear set. We only got 2 of them instead of 3 or 4. You got this big metal ring on the outside, and you've got a big metal hobbed gear. Now, hobbed gear, it's funny nomenclature for that, but it's basically the gear with the texture on the side of it that is able to push up against the filament and feed the filament through there. So that center ring that you're seeing there with those 2 screws, that's going to be the hobbed gear. And so that's just a lot of metal. That's a lot of weight, and you want to limit the amount of weight, the inertial mass. But see, this is a bed slinger, inferior technology, the bed slinger. We have a bed and all the other hardware to mount the bed and level the bed and all that. It's all moving back and forth in the y-axis. So we're already moving weight around there. We can balance it out. We can put the same amount of weight up in the top in the x-axis, and we won't have a problem because we're using a bed slinger. A far superior technique would be to use something like a Core XY movement system and to lessen as the weight on the moving components as much as you can, which is what Bambu Lab did with the X1 Carbon. They turned these cross rods here, which it has on the X1 Carbon, and they turned them into carbon fiber to get you as light a weight thing as possible. But again, we don't need these to be, these are only moving very slowly in the Z-axis, so there's no reason for Prusa to turn these into carbon fiber rods. But yeah, and there was really no reason for them to try to be weight savings here because they can only save so much weight because the bed has to, it's going to weigh a lot. It's a lot to a bed. It should be the thing that moves slowly in the Z-axis, and all these components that can be lightened should be the things that move in both X and Y, which is why a bed slinger is inherently inferior. So as cool as this Mark IV release is, it's still fundamentally flawed. They're using some sort of strain gauge or piezo pickup, or there's a number of ways to do it, but they're using the nozzle itself to measure the print surface, which is the way to do it. Okay. Years ago, like 5 years ago, I first saw this. My personal exposure, first exposure to this was the Duet 3D Smart Effector for Delta printers. And when I saw that, it was one of those jaw-dropping moments, just like, how smart is this? Wow. They integrated the PCB into the structure of the printer. So the PCB with the electronics printed on it was also the carrier for the hot end and all of that. And then in the PCB, they put these spiral traces, and spiral traces can be turned into what's called a load cell. It's basically a digital scale. And so now they had like triple usage out of a single PCB. Just so incredibly intelligent to be able to do that. And so 4 years later, Prusa is doing it in a much stupider way, much more kludgy sort of way, to accomplish the same thing, which is to use the actual nozzle itself to measure the print surface. And this is far superior to the way that they're doing it currently in all of their printers. Yeah, up until now that they've sold, have used the Pinda probe, which measures the substrate. That would be the metal underneath the plastic print surface, the PEI or whatever it is that you want to print with. Why is this inferior? Well, because you have to calibrate the printer. You have to tell it the offset, the thickness of the plastic, basically. So it does the measurement, and then you print a test print and you say this is the offset. Well, what happens when you switch out the print surface? Maybe you have a textured print surface that's thicker, and then you have a smooth PEI print surface that's more thin, and you might want smooth or textured depending on whichever print you're doing. Well, you got to tell it that it's got the different offset now. Whereas when you've got the nozzle touching the actual print surface, you don't have to tell the printer anything. It just automatically knows this is the height, this is where I'm printing, and it works. So finally, Prusa's doing this right. Only took him 4 years. Congratulations not being a leader. Congratulations being a very late to the game follower on nozzle touching the bed. Okay. Quick swapping of, this is a Revo. This is a ripoff of Revo. Like that, isn't that basically the core value proposition of Revo right there? I know Revo has some other pretty smart functionality as far as how the wraparound hot end melts the filament and all that. But yeah, this is such bad form. So E3D has been a frenemy kind of a thing with Prusa, where they've been providing Prusa with the i3, or I'm sorry, the E3D V6 for years for the i3 Mark III, and it's fantastically functional, right? But Prusa has cut them out, just like they cut out everybody else. Everybody that Prusa had a partnership with is no longer their partner. And so to me, this just smacks of Prusa swallowing the whole industry. Just mine, just build it all into their own ecosystem, make themselves vertically integrated, not have to depend on, what would you call it? Vendors, outside manufacturers, make it all in-house kind of a thing, which is the way that business works. I cannot fault them for their business. What I can fault them for is this cloak of virtue signaling open source that they wrap themselves in. Why is open source so great? Why do we love it so much? It's because it makes a diverse ecosystem. It means a rising tide rises all ships. But when Prusa cuts all of the other ships out of the game, he's sinking those ships so that his company can continue to make money. And that is very bad form. It's very capitalistic, but it's dishonest to be so capitalistic and pretend like you're group minded and you're all for open source. Okay, we got a Hall effect filament runout switch. This is pathetic. I mean, this is a rendering. This isn't even real, and I can tell you it's pathetic compared to the amazing intervention done by, who is it? Bamboo Lab. I'll put a link up here in the screen somewhere for you to go watch that review video on the Bamboo Lab X1 Carbon that I did. And that switch for their filament runout detection is phenomenal. It's 5 times better than this kludgy looking thing. So I don't know. I haven't seen this in my hand. I need to see the real deal, but again, they're not leading. Okay. Congratulations. You have a runout switch. Great. Great. Easy maintenance connector breakup board. Why do you need to be maintenance on it? I thought Prusas were perfect and never, ever needed to be maintained. I don't buy it. I think this is a gimmicky sales tactic. Planetary gears. What happened to the, cycloidal gearbox, or what's the other one called? The flexible strain one. I forget what those are called, but yeah, I thought Prusa was using those. Isn't that interesting that now we're onto a planetary gearbox, just like we've had on Voron printers for years with the orbiter extruder for Voron printers. And there's many Chinese companies. I think the Soval SV06 even has a planetary gearbox already. So this large contact area is nice. It's very nice. And I really desperately want to give Prusa credit for these 2 bearings here that effectively double the amount of surface area, pressure patches pushed up against the very large gear. But I've been burned before giving Prusa credit. First of all, I started calling other printers that looked like the i3 frame style. It's not. It's all a Mendel frame style. This bed slinger thing is a Mendel frame. Prusa came after Mendel, so you can't call it the Prusa. You have to call it the original thing, which is the Mendel. And I also gave Prusa credit for coming up with the powder coated PEI. Nope. Tom Sandlauderer himself showed how one of his supporters, Patreon supporters or whatever, had sent him a PEI powder coated print surface years ago. So it's like, none of these things does Prusa ever come up with. So I'm really reluctant to say that Prusa came up with this, but I've never seen it before. So congratulations to Prusa if you did actually develop something finally on your own. Because this does look like a really great solution, and I am excited for this. The very large wheel and the 2 bearings contacting it looks great. But let's acknowledge that you're just following other people's leadership. Once again, you're not the leader, Prusa. Who's the leader? Bondtech. Bondtech has been making the hobbed gears wider and wider, bigger and bigger, and you're basically just trying to match Bondtech, and it forced you to come up with this innovation. But this is not a copycat. This is definitely innovative. Okay, as far as the board is concerned, who cares anymore? It's getting to be where it's like all we care about is it's way out of the realm of most DIYers. I wouldn't know what I was looking at here. You can tell me, okay, so it's got some great connectors, but if you didn't upgrade the board after 6 years, we would have problems. So congratulations, you've got a new control board. Thanks for sharing. Color screen. Is this the same screen from the Prusa Mini? Or is it upgraded? Is it a dedicated new screen for the Mk4? I mean, it's nice to have, but Chinese printers have been coming with touch screens. It doesn't even look like, oh, it's a color screen. It's not even a touch screen. Input shaping. This has been in Clipper for years. So I know Clipper's open source, so that's fair game, and Prusa's adopting it, but I don't think they've done anything to improve input shaping. It's most likely that they basically just really finely tuned input shaping to this printer. The printer is going to be so standard, all the same weights on the bed and everything like that, that they're basically going to be able to ship a tremendously functional input shaping with zero calibrating needing to be done by the end user. So that's nice. It will just work in that regard. So congratulations using somebody else's innovation once again, but once again providing polish and doing it better. This is so disingenuous. This is so dishonest. Mark III, 10 hours. Mark IV, 3 to 5 hours in draft mode. Okay, so you're talking about the Mark III with the 0.4 millimeter nozzle versus the Mark IV with the 0.6 millimeter nozzle. And you're talking draft mode versus not draft mode versus fine mode. What happens if you put a 0.6 millimeter nozzle and run the same G code on it? Is it gonna, you could get the same quality from the Mark III, couldn't you? Like this just seems, this is like a lie. It's very dishonest, right? Apples to oranges. And why not compare yourself to another printer? Nope. Got to keep it in Prusa. Let's compare ourselves to ourselves. Why you need to spend the money, you as a Prusa fanboy, you're basically they suck you dry of your blood. They're like a vampire, and they know that you're going to have to buy the latest and greatest Prusa thing because you're loyal to Prusa, and this is for you. If it was for everybody else, they'd be showing why their print quality is superior to the Soval SV06 or something like that. So this isn't for the general market. This is for the core audience of Prusa believers that they know they can use and abuse, and they're going to get their money from you. Draft mode for 20 minutes. Run the Mark III in draft mode. Come on. Run it with the same size nozzle. Wi-Fi and Ethernet. Well, that's nice. You can have both Wi-Fi or Ethernet. So if your Wi-Fi is spotty, you can connect it. That's pretty nice. I haven't seen that before. Well, maybe I have, but I'm sure it's going to be very polished. I do have to give Prusa credit. Their products are very well polished. So that's going to be great. But Wi-Fi, come on. Duet 3D has been offering the Duet Wi-Fi for years. 4 years late to the game. You're finally offering it. Prusa, you're not a leader. You're definitely a follower. Encrypted remote management? Right, because your printers are so likely to get hacked. Come on. Offline ready. Now this is kind of an important one. My biggest criticism of the Bambu Lab X1 Carbon is the fact that they make you print everything through the cloud. So China's like trying to gather all your data. They're trying to see what it is that you're working on, and they're going to have your IP address. And if you're working at a company, they're going to know to look at everything you print because they want to see what you're secretly, what's secret. So being able to not have your printer plugged in or on Wi-Fi and be able to just walk across the room with your SD card and plug it in, that's nice to have. And that's the way Prusa has been functioning forever. So really this is like a backwards compatibility kind of thing. This isn't a new feature. To feature it as a whole bullet point, it's just, I don't know. Yeah, hey, it's great and all that, but it's not that impressive. Most of these features, just meh. Okay, extra safety features. Yeah, I'm sure that the Prusa i3 Mark IV is going to be the safest printer on the market. I mean, maybe. The Bambu Lab is so polished as well, it might give it a run for its money. But it's like, this is this coddling of the American mind kind of thing. Jonathan Haidt wrote a book about this. We are so overly safety conscious these days. Now that we don't make anything in America anymore, we don't have any industry for real. So we don't have like men who understand how things actually get made. And everybody's just, had single moms that were constantly on them and yelling them about, wearing enough warm layers of clothing and all this stuff. So everybody online is just so overly focused on safety. I have not seen a 3D printer catch fire since the frickin' ANET A8 times, right? If there's been any printers that caught fire since then, it was user error. Somebody did something wrong, they connected something wrong, or they were trying to modify their printer and it caught on fire. But printers just don't catch on fire anymore. This is, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be very, very safe, safer than most of the others, but I just don't see it being that important. One-click printing. I don't know what that means. Custom. Okay, this one is just so gimmicky. So you've got a dedicated RGB status bar. How about you save the money for us and let us upgrade to that if we want to put all the options on the printer? Like, how much did that cost? Is that $5 more? I'd rather save $5 than have a status bar on a dedicated. You can put that information on the screen. You don't. Okay, that's a nice thing about Prusa's. They really have been quieter than most of the other. All the Chinese printers are so loud. But in fairness, fast fans spinning quickly provide great cooling. So I think one of the hacks that Prusa does to get the fan speed down, the fan noise down so low is they slow down the fans, which means you don't get as good a cooling. And I noticed that when I did my tests on the i3 Mark III, I had not the greatest part cooling because I think they're slowing the fan speed down to make it a quieter printer. What sells printers more? Better part cooling or more quiet operation? Most people aren't going to notice the better part cooling because they're not going to have anything to compare it to, but they'll definitely notice a loud printer. So the fan noise is definitely superior on Prusa printers at a cost. And let's talk about the motion system noise, because the linear rods with the metal bearings, that's metal on metal, rattle. They make a noise. It's definitely louder than the V-groove motion system that we see on most Chinese printers. And I get comments frequently talking about why Prusa's superior. It's not. Like, these are people who are just fanboys for Prusa who want to say that anything Prusa did is automatically the best just because Prusa decided to do it. But if you think of the Delrin wheels on a V-groove motion system as a consumable, like a tire on your car, then it's not a big deal. And it's like $4 for all the wheels. It's going to be really cheap. Not to mention the fact that I've never needed to replace any V-groove wheels on any of my printers. So maybe if you're running a print farm, this is going to be a problem you run into, but you can also just adjust your printer to the correct tension, and you're not going to be overly stressing those wheels and causing them to wear out. Speaking of adjustments, you can't adjust out the slop, the backlash in the Prusa motion system, whereas you can do that with the eccentric nuts on the V-groove systems. So V-groove has a lot of things going for it, and it is true that if you get a bit of dust on the V-groove track, it could potentially lead to artifacts on your prints. But hey, just spend the 10 seconds before every print to wipe down the tracks. In fact, you only really need to wipe down the X-axis track on the top, because the Y-axis has the bed right over the top of it. So the chances that you're going to get any dust up under there are very slim. And the Z-axis, it's vertical. How is the dust going to stick to a vertical surface? I guess it could happen, but fine. Wipe down all those axes and you won't have a problem. So it's yeah, okay, there's a slight little thing you have to do for 10 seconds. You have to wipe down the tracks. And maybe if you don't have it adjusted right, you're going to have to replace those wheels. But that doesn't make the motion system on the Prusa superior. It's not. There are problems. It's noisy. It has backlash. Can't all the other printers on the market print with these same filaments? It seems like they're really reaching for features to list here in this 4-minute and 20-second video. Maybe we're only in 2 minutes and 12 seconds into this video. They're really reaching here. No VFA motors. There's this other company, PRAGUE, who's been offering zero VFA artifact motors for years to mount onto your i3 Mark III. So this is just another case, and there are not countless, but there are many examples of Prusa cutting people out. That's capitalism. That's how it works, right? So this company, small startup, comes along. They're not making 1/10 the amount of money that Prusa's making. Nothing, not even close. But they're doing it better than Prusa. So Prusa says, thanks for the idea. We're going to sell those things now. That's the way it works. That's business. What's not business is to pretend like you were here for the community, like you were serving the interests of everybody else, and yet every small business that comes along, you cut them out and you put them out of business by offering their products by you instead of by them. This thing, wow. Another thing I would love to give credit for. There's 2 things so far in this video that I'm just like, those are good, and I haven't seen them before. The 2 bearings on the large hobbed gear, and this time-saving mesh bed leveling only right there where the print is actually going to occur. That's a good idea. I wonder if anybody's ever implemented that before. Once again, I'm extremely reluctant to give Prusa credit for anything because, listen, I've got comments from old videos where people are trying to tell me that Prusa is responsible for trinamic technology, for the motions, the chipset that runs the stepper motors. That's so fantastic. That's a company. Trinamic is a company with very smart electrical engineers figuring out how to do this, and people are trying to give Prusa credit for what another company did. So yeah, it's the way that it goes. Everybody thinks Prusa does all this when in reality Prusa is just copying and pretending like they're the leader. So I haven't seen this before. Maybe this is another thing that Prusa actually did lead on. I would love to give them credit if that's the case, but I've been bit before. So as good as this is, I think somebody else did it. Okay, that's something to talk about. And yeah, over 1 million test hours on our print form. That's not on a single Mark IV. That's on all your other, 1,000 Mark IVs or something. I don't know. So I get a lot of comments talking about how Prusa is the most reliable printer, and it just works. And this has been the sales pitch of Prusa for years, because the smarter purchase decision for most consumers is to buy an Ender 3 for $175. And it takes a bit more effort, but you'll get prints which are 95%, 99% as good as what you'll get from the Prusa. In fact, arguably better when it was the Prusa i3 Mark III with the inconsistent extrusion and all of that. So it did not make sense to spend the extra $500 to buy another bed slinger. Ender 3 is a bed slinger. Prusa i3 Mark III is a bed slinger. But everybody wants to say, no, it just works. I ordered it and it just prints, and I don't have to think about it, and it solves the problem for me. And most of these guys that are making this argument are running print farms. So I urge extreme caution. If you think that you're going to make money 3D printing, you're wrong. Okay. This is exactly like the gold rush that founded San Francisco, right? The 1849 gold rush. They say most of the people who made money during the gold rush were selling blue jeans, pickaxes, and gold like pans for, sluicing out the gold from the sand. They're the ones who made the money. Nobody was actually mining for gold. So if you are the one who's actually printing the parts, you're not going to make money. You're not going to get your parts seen on Etsy. Who are you going to sell them to? Your friends and your family? You have to get that out there. And there's already a ton of competition. People who already have the algorithms going in their favor, selling the same parts that you're trying to print, unless you have something that nobody's thought of yet, right? So Prusa's effectively selling you pickaxes and blue jeans, and they're making their money $500 per printer more, and they're trying to justify that to you, saying, oh no, don't worry about it. In your 10,000 hours of printing, we're going to save you $500 worth of time, but you're not going to make any money. That's a total, it's dishonest. So don't believe this. Anybody who's out there who's not already a Prusa fanboy, already in this ecosystem, don't think that this is a tool, a money-making tool. This is a fun, awesome hobby. I love 3D printing. Please get into it, but don't waste your money. You don't need a printer that's super, super reliable. The Chinese printers are plenty reliable. They're going to do the job for you, and they're going to save you a lot of money. Made in Prague from high quality components. Speaking of Chinese printers, Prague, that's in the Czech Republic, formerly called Czechoslovakia before they split from Slovakia. Czechoslovakia was a satellite state to the USSR. It was a communist state. Okay. It is much closer in culture and in mindset and all those things to Russia. And I know that they've got a lot of hatred for Russia, because they're right there and they were kind of run by Russia, during Soviet times and whatnot. But that doesn't mean that they're that different. If you're an American, you don't have that much in common with these guys. Unless you parents immigrated from Prague or something like that. But so what? They're from Prague. China, Prague, who cares? Who cares? This isn't a made in America. Don't have quality that this is some Western product or something like that. It's not. And in the past, I have criticized the i3 Mark III for saying that they're made in Prague, but most of the components are made in China. Well, I got very well written, believable comments breaking down where all of the components came from. The PCB manufactured in Tennessee, fantastic. The hot end made by E3D in the United Kingdom. There were other components that were, like I said, broken down country by country, company by company. But Prusa has spent the last 6 years cutting everybody out, bringing it all in-house, vertically integrating their company, which is capitalism. Way to go. They should be able to sell it cheaper now. Not just higher quality, but also less expensive because of that vertical integration. But they're just taking the money. Money. Ours. This is not open source. This is not a rising tide raises all ships. This is all for Prusa's benefit and gain. And so they're cutting all these other companies out to vertically integrate, make everything in Prague themselves. And it's not right that they can wrap themselves in a virtue blanket of open source. I don't think they live up to that at all, or he lives up to that at all, Mr. Joseph Prusa. Made in Prague. How much of it is made in Prague? Because you can't make everything in Prague. Everything is made in China. So I heard a rumor that basically their stepper motors are made by LDO. So LDO, that company is a Chinese company. So how much of it really is made in Prague? And what does it matter? It's not made in America. It's not your uncle being hired at their factory unless you're a Czech citizen. And I get a lot of Czech fanboys who hate me because of my criticisms of Prusa. But it's obvious who they are. They're speaking English as a second language. They butcher the nomenclature of things, and the way they talk is clearly not native speaking. So I don't mind them. Of course they're going to protect their countrymen. But for you, my audience in America, the bulk of consumers for 3D printers are Americans. This shouldn't matter at all that it's made in Prague instead of China. Open source, there it is, right? And we're going to get to that here again in a minute. But yeah, repair, modify, or hack it to your liking. Come on, really? You can say that. What's preventing you from, like, there's people who have reverse engineered other printers that were closed source before. And the engineers at Prusa are already polishing this to the nth degree. So it's not like you're saving money, but you're going to open source and DIY it to uplift it into a superior product. It's already supposed to be the most superior. Why are you going to touch it? Like, everything about this statement is wrong. Prusa needs to stop virtue signaling and claiming that they represent open source. They don't. Go with a Voron if you love open source. Right? Do it yourself. Don't support Prusa for open source. Prusa is using open source to get your money. Oh, by the way, I want to talk about that for a second. If you spend money, but you don't get any value from it, you've lost your money. And somebody who loses something is a loser. So I say Prusa is for losers, because you can get the Soval SV06 for 1/3 the price and have all the functionality. So don't be a loser. Don't buy a Prusa. That's genuinely how I feel. And especially don't support cheaters who claim that they help and support open source when really all they're doing is swallowing up the whole industry and making everything in-house and hard for you to actually do this, what they're claiming you can do. There's another 3D printer channel. His name is Mihai Design. Love him. He's another, I'm calling the Eastern European. He's not from France or Germany or he might be from Germany, but he's not from France or England or something like that. So I'm going to call him Eastern European, a computer programmer. And in the early days, his channel was all about modifying his Prusa, and he doesn't do that anymore. And I get the feeling that he was more or less chased off of that. So I encourage you guys to reach out to him and just see how he feels about Prusa's open sourceness and how receptive Prusa is to you modifying Prusa printers. Because even for DIYers, if you get successful and start posting, upgrades to their printers, it seems like they don't like you encroaching on their turf. Okay, they got a warranty and they got live chat support. I mean, there was a time when you bought a Chinese printer and you were on your own. It's not that way anymore. So I guess they're going to have a superior warranty and superior chat or support, I guess. I don't know. I haven't tested that. So I'm going to give it to them. Sure. Upgrade your i3 Mark III to a Mark IV. Can you really? Here's the Prusa website. You can definitely buy a Mark IV fully assembled. You can buy a Mark IV kit, but I don't see, there's an i3 Mark III S Plus. Multi-material. There's the MMU for Mark IV. I don't see it. I don't see the Mark III to Mark IV upgrade kit, which is a bummer because I would actually buy that. I would upgrade my Mark III just to see if this is solving all of the problems that they're claiming. But I'm not going to spend $1,100 to buy, $1,100 to buy the pre-built one, or what is it going to be? Or $800 to buy, notify me when available. So they've sold out. So at the moment, if you want one, you got to buy the pre-assembled one for $1,100. $1,100, for crying out loud. Do not buy this printer for $1,100. Buy a Bambu Lab X1 Carbon. Absolutely superior. I can already tell you, even without getting this one in my hand. Ready for the Prusa enclosure? This is just an ad now for all their other things that they sell. Loved by makers. Valued by professionals. Shipping now. 5 more things. Okay, again, buy the Bambu Lab X1 Carbon. It's got the, what do they call it? The AMS. And you can print up to 16 colors. 16 colors. Look, here's the 3D Print General's video about that. 16 colors. Not 5, 16. And also, I don't know what they've done to the MMU2 or MMU3 now to get it to work, and they're claiming it's flawless. But the MMU2 is notorious on the internet for just being crap. They should be ashamed that they even still sell that product. Just let everybody down who tried to use it. And the reason is because of the stringies when you're retracting filament to change colors and whatnot. So the solution that Bambu Lab came up with, and I have not seen it before Bambu Lab, and it looks like they did originate that innovation, is this little guillotine cutter that leaves all the old molten filament that's going to string with you in the nozzle. And so yes, you have to purge it. You have to push all that back through the nozzle before you get to the next color, but you don't get all the jams that were the problem with the MMU2. So I'm not seeing a guillotine cutter right there at the nozzle, or just a little bit above the hot zone, the melt zone, here on the Prusa i3 Mark IV. So it looks to me like they didn't solve the fundamental problem of the MMU2, and now the MMU3 is likely to suffer from it. So yeah, I think this is just more of them selling you something that's just not going to work. Substandard, inferior product, but hey, buy. Give Prusa your money. Let's talk about some other things. I've shown this before. I'll show it again. Over 9,000 printers worldwide every month that they're shipping is what they're claiming, but they haven't upgraded that or updated that statistic there on their website since the Bambu Lab came out 9 months ago. I'm questioning whether or not they're still selling that many, but I did some back of the napkin math. Somebody left a comment linking me to Prusa's earnings report. You know, they have to file with the government there in the Czech Republic. And it looks like they are earning $7 million, more or less, every month. Every month, $7 million. This is not a startup. This is not a small company that's working in your interest, scrapping, and you just need to help them succeed. This is a juggernaut. And it's obvious when you get onto the forums and you see everybody who wants to suck up to Prusa that they're basically just trying to get a piece of that action. And this is King Prusa. This is a classic court situation, the king's court. Everybody's just trying to get in his good graces so that he will bless them with some views on their channel, or maybe some free printer or beta test printer or something like that. So even nice guys, there's a couple of really nice guys, one of them being Chris Riley from Chris's Basement, another one being the 3D print professor. I like both of them, but they are unabashed fanboys for Prusa, and it's misplaced. Nice as they are, good guys as they are, they're supporting something which I don't think is good. This whole situation, Prusa swallowing up the industry while pretending to be virtuous and open source, is not a good situation. And a lot of the guys aren't nice. Look, here's a goon squad. We call these guys goons. Goons are, they beat you up because you dared to threaten the interests of whatever group they're a part of. So we had pro-worker or pro-union, anti-union workers. You might have seen that hockey movie called Goon about the guy who beats up members of the other team. So a goon is a guy who uses violence and aggression to punish people who dissent or try to verbally criticize something, right? They turn into violence. I've absolutely been the victim of Prusa's goons. And I'm going to name names here. One of them, Barnacles Nerdgasm. That guy is a total goon who has come after me and sicked his followers on me. Another one being, who is it? What is it? The Angry Warcocky. He puts it in his name, angry. He's angry, right? These guys are unashamed in their use of aggression, and they never quit. You can argue them and prove every point that they're saying wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. The point isn't to win the argument. The point isn't to be right for them. The point is to cause you pain. And you will come across them if you are like me and you go online and you criticize Prusa. So a massive part of Prusa's success, in fact, I'm going to say at this point in time, the only thing Prusa has to still dominate with is this perception in the community that Prusa is the best. It's not. It's clearly not, objectively speaking, the best printer on the market anymore, despite what the awards that they've paid for want to tell you, right? So it's these goons, it's the nice guys, it's all this diversity of people who are telling you, oh, I love this printer, but that's just momentum. There was a year where Prusa really did dominate, and this is all just momentum left over, but it's not. Prusa is not all that. It's not all that. So in tandem today with the release of the i3 Mark IV video, there's a blog about Prusa and open source, and if you read between the lines, basically it's all right here. Before I start, I want to make a few things clear to avoid any misunderstandings. We stand behind our roots in open source. our slicer will always be open source. So what's happening here is Prusa's distancing himself from open source because unashamedly, like I said, Prusa is all about swallowing up the entire community. Prusa is all about being the dominant company in 3D printing, and open source doesn't work to become King Prusa. Open source works when it's a group effort, but even Linux got swallowed up by Microsoft. So if you are a corporation, being based in open source is not very good for the bottom line. So in a way, this is honest, and he's telling you all just what I've been saying all this time. He is not your hero of open source. He's just trying to do it in a way that doesn't alienate you. So I'm the enemy. I'm the bad guy. Design, prototype, test. Gotta hate him, even though here we have Prusa proving me right. And look at where we are. Look at all the things I've been saying for all these years, and look at where we are right now in 2023. I mean, I'm not gloating per se, because I've got a lot of things wrong, but man, for being the only crazy person up here saying these things, a lot of what I was saying seems to be coming to pass. And one interesting thing that I've said in the past about Joseph is he blocked me on Twitter, and now I am unblocked. Super interesting. I called him a coward for blocking me. Maybe I do affect their bottom line badly enough that he thought if he blocked me, I would just go away. But I don't know. I don't know what he was thinking blocking me. Maybe he was thinking that the algorithm it would hurt the algorithm, and I wouldn't be featured quite as much if he blocked me. And that has definitely been the playbook of the Prusa Mafia, to pretend like I don't exist. They talk about me in their forums. They talk about me on the back end. They insult me and all kinds of stuff, but they don't ever design, prototype, test. They don't ever link to my videos or anything like that because they want to deny me the press. Any press is good press, and they just want me to suffer. So I know how it is. You guys want me to be the bad guy. Nothing unites a group like a common enemy, and we better make design, prototype, test the enemy because he dares to criticize Joseph Prusa with his words. Speaking of words, I have some questions for Joseph Prusa. How about it, Joseph? You want to have a conversation? I'd love to ask you these questions. All right, well, that'll do it for this video. See how long I keep this one posted. These tend to have a short shelf life, and I see no reason to keep them up on the channel. Everybody who's a super fanboy who cares about the minutia that I go into is going to see this in the first couple of days. So yeah, all right, that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.